Hello, fellow language learners. This is Jyoti, and you are here on Instant English. Today's topic is spoken English tips. So, I would be giving you 20 tips to enhance your English and how to speak in a better way. So, let us start. The very first tip right here is focus on long term goal and strategy. Learning a language, any language for that reason, is not a very simple, easygoing process. It's not a short term goal, it's not a one day process. So you have to first decide that you are on a journey and you are on a long term, you have fixed your long term goal and you have a strategy to go about. The strategy may differ according to the individual, as your plans, whether you want to study part time, whether you want to go for it full time, whether you want to give maximum of your time in practicing listening or speaking or writing or the other skills, other micro skills. So the very first tip is that you decide your goal, that you have to learn English for communication reason, for traveling, for interaction, for teaching. So you decide first. And on the basis of that goal, you decide the strategy. How will you go about it? Because when you will finalize the strategy, you will execute it properly and then you will achieve success in learning a particular language, right? Okay, now don't think about rules and logic. Many of my students, they always ask that if they wish to communicate or they wish to interact in English, is it very necessary that they should jump into the micro skills? They should cram all of them, all those very confusing rules and very minor regulations there in grammar and other micro skills. So I tell them, no, it's not at all necessary, because when you are learning a language, you just need to communicate. And nobody is asking you about grammar, or nobody is going to ask you what are adverbs of degree or what are adjectives of quality or quantity. Nobody asks. The only thing is you have to fix it first, that you should be, confident enough to use those phrases in English and confident about those micro skills, the structure and pattern of grammar and construction of meaningful sentences. And that could easily come to you if you have planned, or if you have a strategy to go about it. The very first hitch that comes as a learner, and because you are not confident, you are learning a language for the first time. So what are the basic requirements? How do you go about it? You should first consider yourself as a learner, because right from the first day we can't be like expert in speaking, or we may not be able to infer after listening a piece or an audio clip. It may not be possible, because it's not, again, as I said, it's not a one day process. So you have to listen carefully, you have to understand, comprehend. So learn to understand. Then I think if you make mistakes as a learner, there is no harm in it, because you are learning after creating each and every mistake. So with mistakes, you are learning. If you create blunders, if you really make enough mistakes, you learn from them. But the process will definitely include listening, evaluating, checking your work regularly, reading a lot. Try to be a voracious reader. Read whatever you get. Noting the keywords which help you in building up your vocabulary, your language, and your construction. And very important part is enjoying the process. That is, uh, whichever language you are learning or whatever you are doing, you should enjoy that. If it becomes monotonous, if it becomes a commitment, if it becomes a regular process, then it will not be worthwhile. So, the very important part is learn to enjoy and be ready to make mistakes. Now, when we talk about basic grammar, because if you are learning a language, you should know the basic grammar. Obviously, it's a necessity. But focusing on grammar will prevent you from being able to speak English fluently in a reasonable time frame. And this is a very important part of this spoken English tip. That is, if you if you are at the initial level and you start focusing on grammar, you will go into the depth, like what are adjectives, then what are the types of adjectives, what is active, what is passive. There are so many rules, n number of rules, and that all becomes very pathetic, because instead of concentrating and focusing on fluency, on speaking skills, on micro skills, we are actually focusing on the basic grammar and the rules. So we are not going to appear for an exam. If we are going to appear for an exam and if somebody is going to ask us where do you put these punctuation marks, or what is apostrophe, or what is like a noun or pronoun, then we should go for that grammar or micro skills or those structure and pattern of language. But otherwise we definitely don't require. So what we require is, we should get a basic uh, skill of grammar, master that, and then start working on your English fluency. Be confident to make mistakes, because you have a time frame to learn that language. You cannot, although it's a long term goal, it's a lifelong process, but for the time being when you require to work hard, you need to. So don't focus major on grammar skills. Rather, focus on speaking and listening English, and uh, start working on fluency. Now, how to go about it? What should be your learning process, your learning style? Because every individual is different. So, we study according to our needs, our techniques. We naturally, because it's a natural process, we cannot put pressure on ourselves, and we don't have like 2 or 3 days to learn. It's a long term goal. So a very important way of learning is method, that we can term as method. So mimic and learn. So what is this mimic and learn? See, when you watch movies, you just see them talking, you hear them talking, using various expressions, phrases. You can memorize them, and after memorizing, you use them. Of course, you will make silly mistakes at the initial level, but gradually you will get comfortable with them. And when you will get comfortable, then start working on them. Start learning them, memorizing those phrases, and that should be your learning style. Because gradually you have to accommodate your phrases in learning. That's how you start making your English worth like writing or listening or speaking. So mimic, follow someone, follow these tips, and memorize, and avoid all such silly mistakes, because they will not they will like present you pathetically. So don't try to do that. Okay, as we know that if you wish to learn a language, you should start thinking in terms of that language. If you think in some other language and translate it to your language or the language that you are learning, it becomes really difficult, because every language has its own rules, its own grammar, construction, and the other type of rules. So don't try to translate and don't incorporate. So instead of that, a better option is to surround yourself in English. So when you surround yourself in English, surrounding is not actually literally surrounding yourself in English, but when you listen someone or listen your neighbors or your friends or your relatives talking in English, or even on TV, on the net, internet, a lot of people they speak, listen to them. Try to comprehend, understand, start talking, start writing little small sentences, read a lot to enhance vocabulary, expression, syntax. So, after doing all these activities like listening, understanding, talking, writing, reading, you are actually surrounding yourself in English, because throughout the day you are spending some 7 to 8 hours doing this. So, when you hear, you somehow get accustomed to that language and you start using that. Although you make mistakes, but then you get comfortable with that. Now, many of my students, they often ask me that if we read or write better, can we speak in a better way, confidently, without any hitch, without any hesitation, in front of audience, in front of people? I don't think so. Because if you write or read or even listen, that will definitely not help you in speaking. Because speaking is totally a different skill, it's a different micro skill. So you have to work out on that. So the first step is you go to the basic grammar, you comprehend, start comprehending little small sentences like subject and verb, then gradually move to subject, verb, and object, then gradually moving to what are the parts of a speech, and like that stepwise you move ahead, and then start working on your speaking skills, because it's very necessary that you speak out, and that too loud. It's not speaking inside a room, it is speaking with your friend, your relatives, in market, everywhere. So make it a habit to start surrounding yourself. So don't just listen, but speak out loud, and that will help you. That's my favorite part. That is, watch out for pronunciation. It is not pronunciation, it is pronunciation. Okay? So, and why pronunciation? Because when you start speaking, the native speakers, they follow your pronunciation, they just hear you out, and in the meantime they create an image of yours. That is because if you don't pronounce the words correctly, that means you are a non-native speaker and you will never acquire that accent, that pronunciation, unless you work on it. So it's very essential that you watch out for your pronunciation. Lot of internet you can find lot of dictionaries which are available, lot of resources are available where you can just click the word and the pronunciation is there. So you can hear it out, you can practice a lot, prepare a diary sort of, prepare a notebook sort of, and you write that pronunciation of that particular word in your own language if you are comfortable with that, and keep practicing, because if you don't practice you will forget, and if you don't use it in your daily speaking skills, then you will definitely forget those words and the pronunciation of those words. So keep this as a daily routine. Check for these words in any of the resources which are available around, and just write them somewhere and practice. Now, as I tell my students that when you observe the Americans, the Britishers, they speak very fluently because it's their native language. So when they are speaking in their native language, they are very comfortable. They are not careful. They are very comfortable, and so that fluency is obviously there. Okay, they don't have to work out on that. But when a non-native speaker, he learns that language, And if you think that you become fluent within days, within hours, it may not be possible. So, what you have to do is talk slowly and carefully. Don't rush. That's very important. Don't rush. Because there is the speed will definitely harm you, will be a block to you. Because we are in the process of learning. So we have to be very careful while speaking. So gradually improve your speed, improve your accent, pronunciation, but gradually, not very fast. Don't go fast, don't rush. Now, this is a very important technique as I suggest my students, that is, learn a new word every day. And this really helps you a lot because if you are a non-native speaker, you may not be able to, because if you are suppose working in an office and there are people who are native speakers, they might speak to you or they might tell you something, they might express something in a word, in the form of a word, and that word may not be like you are not aware of the literal meaning of that word. So every time you cannot check a dictionary, or every time you cannot be a walking dictionary sort of person. So what you have to do is you learn a new word every day which are related to your job profile or your daily work. So, like I have mentioned here a few words: mortgage. It's not mortgage, it's mortgage. Balmy, ruckus. So these are the three words which I found it worth to put them over here. But there are hundreds and thousands of words. So you can download an app also. There you get a word for a day. So go for it. Or if you have time, you are traveling somewhere, you can just click on dictionary.com or the other internet resources which are available, and you may find a list of words which are there for the whole week, for the whole month. So go for them. At least after perusing them, after having a look at all of them, you will at least come to know a few words. You will remember those words, and you will um, gradually shift to more words, learning more words. Okay. Keep a pocket dictionary handy. Whether you are working, you are teaching, you are in a marketing job, you're a doctor, an engineer, it hardly matters. Everyone needs to improve and improve the communication skills, the English language. So keep a pocket dictionary handy. I mean, there is absolutely no problem, no issue with this. And every time whenever you confront a new word, you can check in the dictionary, and there I will suggest if you keep a thesaurus too, because if you keep a thesaurus, immediately you will come to know some 8 or 10 words which are synonyms and 5 or 6 words which are antonyms. So in the meantime, you are learning a word, its synonyms, its antonyms. So you are getting a collection of words in the meantime. Now, this is a very practical tip. Find a friend as mentor. Now, because friend can suggest, friend can criticize, friend can also accept you as a learner. He may not trouble you. So when you are sharing with him something, whatever you have learned as a new class or new language or whatever. So find a friend who can help you a lot in learning vocabulary, in learning expressions, phrases, share with him, and go on. Constant practice and applause does wonders. So you cannot say, I'm really tired. No. When you are learning a language, you should be alert, you should be active, you should be agile. Okay? So constant practice helps you a lot. And applause. Ask your friend, your neighbors, your friends, and everyone, those who with whom you are sharing all these things, to just motivate you, to applaud for you, because you are doing something which is very interesting and which is may not be cup of tea for all the other people. So go for it, and I hope these